So I look after BIM and digital engineering nationally. Fairly broad role. It covers systems development and training, a bit of project delivery and strategy and business development within that. It's a large practice, so I've been operating for over 30 years, and it's a fairly diverse workforce, about 175 people spread across Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth and Sydney offices, so a fair bit of territory to cover. Recently, possibly going back 2 years now, they offered me a role as a teaching fellow, and it's part of their master's degree in BIM and IPD. It's fairly unique, first of its kind course, accredited by Building Smart, so first course to have that accreditation. And my role in it is I run a unit called Process Reengineering. And what that essentially is it's looking at BIM systems and primarily how they respond to change. So sort of promoting the concept that you to continually evaluate and evolve and re-engineer your own processes. And then we also cover some lean construction, and for me cover lean thinking in general and how that can be applied to the modelling process, like well before you hit construction. It was a solution to a problem we had, working on a fairly large project where the geometric requirement, so the geometric flexibility and also the data deliverable, there simply wasn't a tool that was going to get us there. So we looked at whether or not we'd develop something ourselves from the ground up, or whether there was anything on the market that kind of came close to being able to solve those problems. And regardless of that, it was an improvement on the options we had to begin with, regardless of this project. But certainly, it was a solution to a problem that was pretty immediate when I was brought on. We're rolling it out practice-wide now. Certainly the main project that we've done most of the testing on and the sort of really taught ourselves a lot about what the park could do is the Queen's Wharf integrated resort development in Brisbane. So it's one of the largest projects in the Southern Hemisphere at the moment. Occupies about 6 CBD blocks right on the waterfront, sort of next, adjacent to the Brisbane River. And it's one of those fairly unique projects where we've got 50 people modelling in the project at any one time, and I don't have the exact number to hand, but there are thousands of openings on the project. Not quite infinite, but thousands. Well, look, there's two main outcomes. I think BIM in general, there's two main outcomes. There's a geometric outcome, which certainly we were having to use a lot of different library parts to try to generate all of the flexibility that we required. So we're going to have to be stitching bits and pieces together to try and achieve some of the required openings, which was never going to work because we have a very strict data deliverable on the project as well. So there's the geometric outcome, the flexibility for the designer, but the sort of the control of the data once the decisions are locked in is really a key thing for us with this one. So we had the two outcomes in mind. Depends on the team member in a lot of cases, as with most things, but it's funny. I thought about this. I think probably the general feeling is skepticism at first, that it's going to be able to do what we need it to do. I think there was skepticism that we'd be able to get 10,000 doors, scheduling live out of a model, and we've been able to do it. Yeah. So I think that's probably generally the theme. Most people are skeptical that it will do what it needs to do. And then for the two different types of users we have some early adopters who just want to get into everything immediately, and they love sort of the exploration, being able to sort of almost force the part to do whatever you want it to do. And then for other users who do really want simplicity, we kind of manage it a little bit differently, where we have certain parts of the part kind of already built, like a kit of parts to pick from. So yeah, different for different users. I think once people are used to it, then certainly they love the idea of the fact that it's all in one. You've really only got to learn one tool. I think that's probably been one of the challenges over the years with a lot of the Graphisoft parts. There's a similarity, but just enough difference between each of the parts to really confuse people. That sort of inconsistency across the various different opening types. So, with this tool kind of acting like a container, and people are just picking something from choice from within the container, that certainly has helped the user base. It was certainly a problem solver for us. That was one of the key things. Certainly something that I don't think any other door window was able to offer us was the ability to control data once we had made decisions. A number of parts on the market that are reasonably flexible, and you can get a decent geometric outcome out of a few different pieces. But the fact that once a decision is made, we can actually lock in types of components. That's a really big one for us. Yeah, definitely. So across the thousands of openings on the Queen's Wharf job and a couple of other similarly large projects we have on, we use frame types, we use viewing panel types, sort of other certain hardware types. So we kind of view the door as an assembly of components, and we lock in those components once the decisions have been made. Normally have a senior operator in the team who'll make the components, and then the users are picking from available components. So yeah, certainly use it extensively. We schedule out every door sort of in multiple different ways. The data has to be delivered in a couple of different formats, so using components to lock that down and actually have named types is really, we couldn't do without it pretty much. Yes, ASA Abloy had come on fairly early on, so they were pretty big supporters of the process we found. So yeah, some of their components we have used on various projects. Sometimes, sort of to varying degrees of success. So generally, if a part exists out there, we'll explore it. Oftentimes, there's a bit of a misconception amongst manufacturers as to what we actually need. Probably a couple of the biggest issues we have is not enough flexibility in the level of development or level of detail that we can show in the parts. Sometimes we'll get an escalator that has every tooth on every tread modelled, which is sort of a little bit too much. And then I think the consistency of the actual data that we're getting as well. Everyone names something quite differently. So while the data is important, having it delivered in a consistent manner is pretty key to us. So at the moment, what we get from a lot of manufacturers is probably the best we can hope for is decent enough geometry. So yeah, sort of mixed results. So I prefer the catalogues, certainly. I like the concept of a container that we feed information into. So I think this kind of plays into that methodology or that thought process that we sort of already have in play. So yeah, it's more in line with where we'd like to go. Yeah, one that's probably goes unnoticed a little bit, but certainly within our team we love it, is the QA ability. What we've done in the past, where we've used multiple different parts to try to get a suite of doors or glazing suites put together, Every property is named something different, so you have this massive auditing schedule in the background that tries to account for every different possible property that all of the different GDL parts could use. We find it really easy to audit types now because the properties are all named the same thing, and I can basically break things down into operable element types really quickly. So the ability to see what choices users have made and the ability to just sort of do that QA initially when we're trying to put things together as types, that's really good. It's now pretty well essential to our processes, so it's definitely built into what we do. I think to sum it up in one sentence, the thing that has made it essential is it's somehow manages to give us flexibility in that suits the design team, and then it also gives us control in the same package, which suits the sort of the data delivery team. So it's sort of managed to satisfy both teams in the one package, which is quite rare. I guess if you're evaluating tools like this, I think sort of applying that process of setting out and sort of understanding what it is that it needs to achieve, like setting yourself a criteria. I think there's kind of three questions that we ask ourselves when we're evaluating these tools as well. So, does the product solve a problem? Sort of being clear on what that problem is and reminding yourself of what that is as you're developing it. Is there a way of taking advantage of something you already have to do? So in this case, the part, it solves the geometry issue that the designers have. So, we have to do that. We're having to present, geometric information all the time. So that's quite common. But we're able to leverage those decisions sort of further down the supply chain. And then I think the big one for me, kind of reinforce sort of in every testing exercise, is does it respond well to change? Because that's pretty much what we're dealing with. Once it's in the model, can we keep changing our mind and have the data update as we go? So yes, I think those three questions are pretty key.